Welcome to this video. Today, we're going to explore the powerful connection between language learning and reading novels, especially in English. Developing your English language skills through novels is one of the most engaging and effective ways to improve your vocabulary, comprehension, and overall fluency. Novels offer a unique opportunity to experience the language in context, allowing you to understand not only grammar and vocabulary but also cultural nuances, idiomatic expressions, and emotional depth. By reading fiction, you immerse yourself in a variety of writing styles, tones, and voices, which can dramatically enhance your ability to understand and use the language in different situations. Whether it's classic literature, contemporary novels, or even thrillers, each book is a new adventure that will help you grow your language skills in a natural and enjoyable way. So, let's dive into how reading novels can help you improve your English and make the learning process both fun and rewarding. The Silence of the Lambs is a psychological horror novel that delves into the complexities of the human mind, exploring themes of fear, manipulation, and the boundaries between good and evil. The story centers around the young FBI trainee, Clarice Starling, as she seeks the help of the imprisoned cannibalistic psychiatrist, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, to catch another serial killer, Buffalo Bill. The novel is notable for its intricate character development, especially the portrayal of Lecter, who is both charismatic and terrifying. Harris skillfully juxtaposes the intellectual depth of Lecter with the emotional vulnerability of Starling, creating a cat-and-mouse dynamic that builds both suspense and tension throughout the narrative. The novel also examines the psychological manipulation of its characters, particularly in the interactions between Starling and Lecter. Lecter, a master of psychological games, uses his knowledge of human behavior to both assist and undermine Starling's investigation, creating a complex relationship that blurs the lines between cooperation and control. The novel's chilling atmosphere, combined with its exploration of trauma, obsession, and moral ambiguity, leaves readers questioning the nature of evil and the psyche behind monstrous actions. Psychological analysis of The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. On a psychological level, The Silence of the Lambs provides an in-depth examination of trauma, identity, and the human response to fear. Clarice Starling, the protagonist, represents someone struggling with her past and her desire to prove herself in a male-dominated field. Her childhood trauma, the memory of hearing lambs being slaughtered, becomes a pivotal emotional driver, representing her struggle to overcome fear and to silence the lingering echoes of her past. Her interaction with Lecter serves as both a catalyst for her personal growth and a confrontation with her unresolved issues. Hannibal Lecter, on the other hand, is a fascinating study in psychopathy. He is intelligent, composed, and manipulative, with a profound understanding of human behavior, which he uses for both his own amusement and to exert control over others. His cannibalism and violent tendencies are framed not only as a manifestation of his need for dominance but also as a rejection of societal norms. Lecter's relationship with Starling is a psychological game of power, where he encourages her to confront her own fears and vulnerabilities, manipulating her in ways that expose her psychological weaknesses. His character illustrates the concept of the other, someone so alien and monstrous that they become both a source of fascination and repulsion. In conclusion, both the literary and psychological layers of The Silence of the Lambs explore the darkness within the human psyche. Harris crafts a world where fear and desire intertwine, challenging the reader to reflect on the complexities of identity, trauma, and moral boundaries. The novel's psychological depth, combined with its haunting atmosphere, leaves a lasting impact, inviting readers to examine their own understanding of evil, human nature, and the psychological toll of violence. One of the most significant events in The Silence of the Lambs is the intense psychological interaction between Clarice Starling and Dr. Hannibal Lecter during their first meeting, which plays a pivotal role in the development of the plot and the characters. In this scene, Clarice, an FBI trainee, is sent to interview Dr. Lecter, a brilliant but psychopathic cannibalistic serial killer, who is incarcerated in a high-security prison. Starling is tasked with seeking Lecter's help in catching another serial killer, known as Buffalo Bill, who is abducting and murdering women. However, Lecter is not willing to cooperate easily. Instead, he engages in a psychological game with her, testing her patience, intelligence, and emotional strength. During their conversation, Lecter reveals his manipulative nature and his ability to probe deep into people's psyches. He is intrigued by Clarice's vulnerability and her past trauma, particularly the memory of hearing lambs being slaughtered when she was a child. Lecter uses this knowledge to manipulate her, offering cryptic advice and clues about Buffalo Bill in exchange for personal details about Clarice's life. He plays on her insecurities and the trauma she has carried with her, while also establishing a dangerous psychological connection with her. This meeting is crucial because it sets the stage for the rest of the novel. Clarice's willingness to confront her past and her ability to navigate Lecter's manipulation become key factors in her personal growth and her progress in solving the case. Meanwhile, Lecter's interest in her, and his psychological control over her, reveals his complex character and foreshadows the intricate cat and mouse dynamic that will unfold between the two throughout the novel. This pivotal event is an exploration of power dynamics, trust, and vulnerability. It highlights how Lecter, as a master manipulator, uses psychological insight to exert control over others, while Clarice's courage and determination begin to shine through as she faces her own fears and uses her vulnerability as a tool to gain information. It is a moment of both psychological intensity and narrative turning point, as it sets in motion the course of events that ultimately lead to the confrontation with Buffalo Bill and the dark, twisted relationship between Starling and Lecter. Character analysis of Dr. Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs 1988 by Thomas Harris. Dr. Hannibal Lecter is undoubtedly one of the most iconic and complex characters in modern literature, particularly in psychological horror. In The Silence of the Lambs, he is portrayed as a brilliant and manipulative psychiatrist with a dark, sinister side, an intellectual and a cannibalistic serial killer. What makes Lecter such a compelling character is his paradoxical nature. He is both refined and monstrous, charming yet terrifying, intellectual yet depraved. This complexity makes him stand out not only as a villain but as a profound psychological study of power, control, and human nature. Intellectual superiority and manipulation. Lecter's intelligence is perhaps his most defining characteristic. He is an exceptionally gifted psychiatrist, capable of reading people with incredible precision. Throughout the novel, He uses his intellectual prowess to manipulate others, often bending them to his will. His psychological games with Clarice Starling, the FBI trainee, serve as one of the central dynamics of the novel. He toys with her emotions, drawing out her vulnerabilities and using them to influence her. For example, his understanding of her childhood trauma, the sound of lambs being slaughtered, becomes a tool for him to manipulate her into revealing personal details. Lecter is also a master of psychological control, which allows him to assert power over others, even when physically restrained in his prison cell. He doesn't need to use physical force to dominate people. Instead, he uses his intellect, charm, and deep knowledge of human behavior to destabilize his victims and those around him. In his relationship with Starling, he creates an intricate psychological puzzle, showing his desire not just for freedom but for control over others' minds. Moral ambiguity and philosophical themes. Lecter's moral ambiguity is central to his character. He is a cold-blooded killer, yet he is not without a code of ethics, albeit a deeply twisted one. He chooses his victims with a specific criterion, often those who, in his view, deserve punishment or those he deems morally inferior. His actions challenge conventional ideas of right and wrong, forcing readers to grapple with the complexity of his character. While Lecter commits horrific acts, he operates in a realm where his moral judgments seem based on his own warped sense of justice. Lecter's character also explores themes of human nature and the darker aspects of the psyche. His ability to detach emotionally from his crimes reveals his complete disconnection from traditional morality, presenting a chilling view of what happens when a person's intellect surpasses their empathy. His dispassionate approach to violence contrasts sharply with the emotional depth of Starling, whose personal trauma and vulnerabilities make her far more relatable and human. Lecter's contrast with Starling emphasizes the tension between intellect and emotion, control and vulnerability. Charisma and sociopathy. Despite his terrifying nature, Lecter possesses an undeniable charm that makes him one of the most captivating characters in literary history. His eloquent speech, refined manners, and sophisticated tastes such as his appreciation for fine wine and classical music create a veneer of civility, masking the monstrous acts he commits. This juxtaposition of civility and barbarity makes him a classic example of the gentleman villain. A character who can charm and manipulate others while hiding a terrifying darkness within. Lecter's sociopathic tendencies are also integral to his character. He exhibits a profound lack of empathy, which allows him to commit heinous acts without remorse. His interactions with others reveal his ability to use people as mere tools to further his own desires. Even in his relationships with those like Starling, Lecter demonstrates a complete absence of genuine emotional connection, instead using others for his intellectual amusement and control. Relationship with Clarice Starling. The relationship between Lecter and Clarice Starling is one of the most compelling aspects of the novel. Starling represents an embodiment of vulnerability and personal trauma, while Lecter represents cold intellect and emotional detachment. Their dynamic evolves throughout the novel, as Lecter becomes both an antagonist and a mentor of sorts. He challenges Starling intellectually, forcing her to confront her past and her fears in order to gain his cooperation in solving the Buffalo Bill case. Lecter's fascination with Starling grows as he begins to see her as more than just an FBI agent. He seems to recognize a kindred spirit in her, someone who, like him, has experienced profound personal trauma and has had to grapple with vulnerability. This dynamic creates an uneasy connection between them, where the lines between predator and prey blur. Starling's ability to face her own fears and to outmaneuver Lecter psychologically highlights her strength and intelligence, even as she is drawn into his web of manipulation. Conclusion: in The Silence of the Lambs, Dr. Hannibal Lecter is more than just a villain. He is a multifaceted, morally ambiguous character that challenges readers to confront uncomfortable questions about human nature, morality, and the mind. His blend of intelligence, manipulation, sociopathy, and charm creates a character who is both captivating and terrifying. Lecter's interactions with Clarice Starling serve as a vehicle for exploring themes of power, control, vulnerability, and trauma. As a result, Dr. Hannibal Lecter remains one of the most iconic and complex characters in contemporary literature, a chilling yet fascinating portrayal of the human psyche's darkest corners.